Hi, friends. When you hear you have high blood pressure, the advice is almost automatic: cut out the salt. But you did that and nothing happened. And the last time you were at the doctor's office, maybe your blood pressure was fine and you thought you were safe until one day you have a splitting headache that sends you to the emergency department and you're diagnosed with high blood pressure. Obviously, that isn't fine. So that actually happened to two of my friends. And in this video, you're going to learn how to truly lower your blood pressure, not only now, but to also keep it off. You'll also learn why the salt theory just doesn't work. And if you stay until the end, you'll learn the best foods to lower your blood pressure within a few days and keep it normal for life. The salt advice everyone hears, potentially all naturally. Now, the American Heart Association recommends that we all limit our salt intake to a maximum of 2,300 milligrams of sodium per day, and optimally not exceeding 1,500 milligrams a day. If simply cutting out salt fixed blood pressure, everyone would have done it by now. Obviously, it's not that simple, and that's because blood pressure is regulated by 5 interactive systems, not just sodium. So, to properly address blood pressure and to keep it off for life, you have to address these 5 systems, which are electrolytes, hormones, your nervous system, your muscles, and the contents in your blood. Now, this sounds pretty complex, but in practice, it comes down to what you eat, how you feel, and how you move. So let's break it down, starting with electrolytes. Now, most people only think about sodium when I say electrolytes, but electrolytes also include potassium and magnesium. And we super obsess over sodium, and we ignore the fact that we are a nation deficient in potassium and magnesium. So people who don't get enough potassium and magnesium, well, they will always struggle with sodium balance, and it's a sodium imbalance that contributes to high blood pressure. Why cutting salt often fails? 99% of Americans eat a potassium deficient diet, and about 50% eat a magnesium deficient diet. Coincidentally, about 50% of Americans have high blood pressure. And if you just change your diet and meet your magnesium and potassium needs through eating whole foods, you will significantly reduce your blood pressure, especially when you lower your salt. And stick around, we're going to talk about some of the most effective diets that have been proven to lower people's blood pressure for good. And that's because those diets are high in magnesium and potassium. If you have high blood pressure, most likely there's still an imbalance of your electrolytes. If you think you're eating enough potassium and magnesium, and let me explain how you can figure this out. So, blood pressure regulation is really about a sodium to potassium balance, which controls water movement in your blood vessels. Magnesium and potassium, they also interact with your muscles. So that regulates your blood pressure through the big heart muscle, your cardiac muscle, as well as through the smooth muscle that line your blood vessels, as well as through your skeletal muscles that help you to move. Now, these electrolytes, they all interact with your kidneys, which releases hormones that regulate blood pressure. Now, FYI, we can measure both serum potassium, what really raises blood pressure, and serum magnesium in your blood, but neither are an accurate reflection of the stores in your body. When you get enough potassium, it relaxes your smooth muscles in your blood vessels as well as your heart, and it tells your kidneys to excrete more sodium. So this prevents sodium accumulation while lowering your blood pressure. And without enough potassium, well, your kidneys and your muscles, these effects just don't happen, and blood pressure stays constantly elevated. Potassium and magnesium also calm your nervous system by reducing the sympathetic fight or flight feeling that tone. And it improves insulin sensitivity. And this is one major reason why America is failing to control high blood pressure without medications. People are so stressed, yet they're told to just lower their salt without actually increasing their potassium and magnesium-rich foods. And there's no way around it. If you have high blood pressure, you must address it either naturally or with medications. Medications may be needed initially because they can work effectively within minutes. Food that takes 1 or 2 days, and that's why you must involve your doctor before changing your diet. Medications block your body's natural compensatory mechanisms to stress. So if you lower your blood pressure, and physiologically you're not able to compensate for that because you're on the same dose of medications, well, your blood pressure can drop too low to cause you to faint. I'm sure you have seen supplements of magnesium and potassium, and some people, they actually use supplements which may have a little bit of benefit. Some people replace sodium salt with potassium salt, and this is only safe if they don't have kidney disease. If you have any kidney issues, hidden causes of high blood pressure, your potassium regulation will be impaired, and potassium intake can significantly shift too quickly and cause life-threatening arrhythmias. Potassium has a narrow therapeutic window because it controls the electrical stability of your heart muscle. Lower potassium makes your heart cells electrically irritable. High potassium really slows down your heart conduction, and that's why the safest potassium source is found in whole food. Now, where can you find potassium? It's trapped in fiber-rich foods, and when you eat that fiber-rich foods, you absorb potassium gradually. Whole foods also allow you to get potassium and magnesium together, especially when you eat leafy greens and beans and lentils. And fruit and tubers are also an excellent source of potassium. Now, the second category are your hormones, and many hormones regulate blood pressure. The most important is the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. It's called RAAS, but others include vasopressor, catecholamine, cortisol, insulin, natriuretic peptides like AMP and BMP, and sex hormones. And guess what? Your food is a hormonal signal. Foods that worsen insulin resistance, raise insulin levels after carbohydrates are eaten. And if you blame carbohydrates like grapes, which are rich in potassium, for your blood sugar spikes, you're misunderstanding the whole physiology. A sugar spike may reflect insulin resistance, but you only see if you eat carbohydrates. However, that doesn't mean that they are inherently a problem. Everybody raises your blood sugars, at least a little bite, every time they eat carbohydrates. Now, the main driver of insulin resistance is excess saturated fat or excess calories, whether that's from refined sugar, from saturated fat or refined carbohydrates, or from protein. These make up the contents of your blood. Excess energy gets stored as fat, and excess fat becomes toxic to muscle and liver cells, and when muscles and livers are full, they reject glucose. That's insulin resistant. Carbohydrates are fast energy, and when energy storage is maxed out, the body diverts energy into fat storage instead. How blood pressure actually increase there is a ceiling to how much carbohydrate you can store in your body. That's primarily just in your muscle. There's no ceiling to fat storage. That's why when you get fat, you're not gaining more muscle. And if you're overeating carbohydrates with that fat, you don't automatically build muscle. Otherwise, everybody would look like Arnold Schwarzenegger without a workout. And when you're on restrictive diets, like a ketogenic diet, that fat inhibits glucose metabolism. And that's why someone eating grapes after prolonged ketosis can see dramatic glucose spikes. Insulin-sensitive people do not see this response. Grapes are actually a low glycemic index food in a metabolically healthy person because grapes, they aren't just full of potassium. They provide fiber and vital nutrients that feed your gut microbiome. And that fiber gets fermented to produce compounds that stimulate GLP-1-PYY and GIP hormones that improve insulin sensitivity, that reduce your appetite, and it lowers your blood pressure. High fiber diets also improve estrogen metabolism by enhancing gut clearance. Now, estrogen is actually vasoprotective. It increases nitric oxidizer, relaxes your blood vessels, and it reduces sympathetic tone. It also improves insulin sensitivity and suppresses the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system signaling. And this is why premenopausal women tend to have lower blood pressure than post-menopausal women. Now, after menopause, estrogen decline, and this contributes to an increased arterial stiffness and salt sensitivity. However, low estrogen alone does not cause hypertension, and many postmenopausal individuals, they are able to maintain normal blood pressure without hormonal intervention, and that's because they are eating higher quality food choices. Hi friends, I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be, and I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. Nutrients that help lower blood pressure. So, if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now. Another problem with sodium is that it's hiding inside your food. And this is especially true with processed and restaurant foods that hide sodium even when they don't taste salty. Take bread, for example. Lots of bread have baking soda, baking powder, both raise sodium sources. However, wherever sodium goes, water flows, and this increases blood volume and pressure. Now, your kidneys will retain water to dilute the sodium in your blood. That will increase your high blood pressure, and this can happen within hours. Food also influences your stress hormones. Highly processed foods, excess fructose, low nutrient density, caffeine, alcohol, and chronic saturated fat intake, they all raise cortisol and sympathetic tones. Saturated fat does not spike stress hormones instantly, but chronically, and increases inflammation, insulin resistance, hypothalamic stress signaling, faster stiffness, and gut endotoxin absorption. So this keeps the body in a higher baseline stress state. That's not good. Saturated fat also alters the contents of the blood because it is insoluble. It's transported by lipoproteins. Excess lipoproteins are taken up by macrophages in your blood vessels. They form foamy macrophages because they're taking up all this fat, and then they can't get rid of it. So they get inflamed. They cause more cytokines to be released, which induces calcium deposition, plaque formation, the narrowing of the blood vessels, and ultimately high blood pressures. So where do you find saturated fat? Animal fat, dairy, coconut oil, and it's also in vegetable and seed oils. So you're probably wondering which diet has been proven to work. There are actually quite a few that are rich in fiber, potassium, magnesium. Number one is a DASH diet. Literally stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. Point two is a whole food, plant-based diet, best foods to lower blood pressure, very similar to the DASH diet. Number three is a Mediterranean diet. Number four is a Nordic diet. Number five is a low sodium, high potassium diet. All these diets actually not only lower your blood pressure by 7 millimeters of mercury in the short term, it also keeps them low in the long term. However, be wary of diets that just promote water loss without actually correcting potassium and magnesium. That would be a low carbohydrate and ketogenic diet, as well as diets that focus on calorie restriction. One of the fastest way to lower your blood pressure is move. Move big muscles, large rhythmic movements like walking, cycling, squatting. Contracting these muscles act as pumps that pushes blood back to your heart and reduces vascular resistance. It increases blood flow, stimulates nitric oxide release, relaxes your blood vessels. Muscle activity pulls in glucose and sodium out of your bloodstream, and this is without insulin. Later on, sodium is secreted by the kidneys. It reduces your plasma volume. And exercise also reduces sympathetic tone, and it increases parasympathetic tone. Now, some people may notice that their blood pressure may rise briefly during exercise to meet their oxygen demand. But within 5 to 10 minutes after stopping, many people experience post-exercise hypotension. That actually can last 2 to 24 hours. And a single 20 to 30 minute session can lower systolic blood pressure by 5 to 10 millimeters of mercury the same day. Over time, daily movement improves endothelial function, capillary diversity, arterial flexibility, and baroreceptor sensitivity. So your resting blood pressure falls because vessels become more compliant and your kidneys handle more sodium directly. And some people, they actually fear exercise because they fear the blood pressure rise during activity. That rise is normal and adaptive. The heart pumps actually harder and faster to deliver that oxygen. Now, contracting muscles temporarily compress blood vessels. That increases pressure during contraction, and it allows flow during relaxation. Remember, if you are unsure whether or not it's safe for you to exercise, in your specific health condition, then you should always check with your own personal medical doctor before you start any exercise or diet regimen. Now, the nervous system redirects blood from non essential organs to muscle and your brain. Adrenaline actually increases cardiac output during aerobic exercise. During aerobic exercise, systolic blood pressure rises while diastolic pressure stays the same or falls due to vasodilation. And doing heavy isometric efforts, both may rise after exercise. Blood pressure can drop below baseline due to persistent vasodilation and reduction in the sympathetic tone. How to keep blood pressure normal. The temporary rise, it's not damage, it's actually delivery. Is your cardiovascular system doing what it's exactly supposed to do? But I think the most difficult part is to get yourself insulin sensitive. So let's check my blood pressure. This is my machine. I basically bought this online. I'm going to match up the cuff to my blood vessel. There's usually a little daughter, some kind of a symbol for you to know that that's where you line up your blood vessel. And I'm going to press start. My blood pressure is 92 over 69 and 67. That's my normal blood pressure. I feel fine. If that is too low for you, be sure that you see a medical doctor, right? Because you can bottom out even more if you make any adjustments in your diet or your exercise routine if you're on medications. This is why reducing hidden sodium while increasing potassium-rich whole foods that often improves muscle relaxation, reduces soreness, and lowers blood pressure, and of course, restores normal muscle responsiveness within days to weeks. And what are foods rich in potassium? Leafy greens and beans. Now, people only think about sodium and controlling blood pressure, but when you eat sodium, it leaks out of your blood vessels and it gets trapped into your tissues, and it brings with it water. So when sodium intake is chronically high, your blood compensates. The kidney, they start retaining water to dilute the sodium in your blood vessels, then your volume expands. Now pressure inside your arteries starts to rise. The heart simply pumps harder. The vascular wall will stiffen over time. And insulin, the hormone most people only associate with sugar, well, that starts behaving differently. Salt, it doesn't just raise your blood pressure, it actually changes how your cells respond to hormones like insulin, how easily fluid leaks into tissue, and how your thirst signals get distorted. Most people, they're walking around in a state of functional overhydration, yet intracellular dehydration, puffy on the outside, thirsty on the inside. But of course, there are going to be some people who believe that they won't be able to hydrate well unless they add some sodium to their water. And there is some truth to that. Depending on your diet, and if you want to learn more about the best way to hydrate, watch the next video.